Donald Trump changing up how he gets his message out to the MAGA faithful. He skipped out on the first Republican debate on Fox Wednesday for a counter-programming interview with ex-Fox News host Tucker Carlson. Of course, Trump's campaign boasted inflated views after that interview aired on X, formerly known as Twitter. His team says he won the debate in dominating fashion with more views than the RNC debate. Trump claimed a total of more than 100 million views. But that number doesn't necessarily reflect the number of people who actually watched the interview. It simply refers to the number of users who saw the post. So here with me on set to make it all make sense is Brian Stelter, journalist and author of Hoax. He also, here you go, has a new book coming out about Fox News called Network of Lies. It's coming out this November, and everybody's going to get a copy of it, Brian. But Brian, let's start with that because I want to understand this. He's saying more than 100 million views, but then that's not legit. So make it make sense.
Why is this always about a measuring contest? Why is it always about that for the former president? Look, this is very much an example of his gross exaggerations that ultimately harm his movement. We've heard of the idea of apples versus oranges. This is like an apple versus an apple seed. The Fox debate was a big event. About 13 million viewers watching on television for the entirety of the 2 hours. Trump's little Twitter video, it's anybody who scrolls past it in the social media feed, that counts as a view. And that's just, there's no way to compare that kind of random interaction with actually watching the debate. But he's out there claiming his interview was bigger than Oprah, which is such an insult to Oprah. You know, there's this attempt to claim that he's so big and powerful. And I think it actually undermines his base because it shows disrespect. It treats his audience like fools by claiming they were more popular than they actually are.
So what does it say, Brian, that Donald Trump didn't do the Fox News debate and then went with ex-Fox News host Tucker Carlson, who was persona non grata at Fox News now? Is that a clear breakup between Trump and Fox News now, you think?
Today it is. Tomorrow it is, but I don't think it'll last for very long. Fox staffers who I've interviewed for that upcoming book, they say, look, we know that Trump pulls away sometimes. He fights with us. He gets into arguments with us. He likes that back and forth. But when it's beneficial for him, he'll come right back home. And the same is true for the Murdochs. We've seen them treat Trump very seriously and downplay his legal jeopardy all across the airwaves. So I think that will continue. Even though there's some tension right now, they almost always come back together.
Talking about coming back home, why go back to Twitter? If Truth Social is such a glorious paradise and oasis for Donald Trump, why go back to Twitter and why now?
Well, it does
X,
reveal,
I'm sorry, X.
Yeah, X. It does reveal an insecurity, a vulnerability from the former president. He does not have the media megaphones that he had in 2016 or, frankly, even in 2020. He does not have that same ability to rally mass media attention. I mean, the only times that he's really getting on television now are when he's arrested. And I understand that the indictments are his campaign. The courthouses are the new rallies, and he's going to lean into that for the months to come. But other than those moments, he's getting very little real news media attention. So I suspect that the re-engagement with X, it's a way to start to crawl back to where he knows he has some audience.
So we talked about your book, and I'm very excited to read it. I also was helping cover the Dominion voting system.
I was watching you in Wilmington,
yeah, exactly. Do you think that's actually chastened Fox in a way that it's viewed dealing with Donald Trump in terms of this upcoming election? Because the big lie keeps on getting touted over and over again by Donald Trump.
There are a couple of small ways that Fox has been chastened. Well, one is a big way, $900 million
huge amount of money
in legal costs, the big Dominion settlement, and a few other settlements also. And there's one other change that's happened. They don't broadcast Trump live the way they used to. When there are interviews with the former president, they are taped. They're always pre-taped. And you know what's interesting? They won't let him call in by phone anymore either.
According to my reporting,
yes, that's right. My reporting indicates that was a serious decision, a choice made by the Murdochs and the executives not to let him just sit in Trump Tower and call in his pajamas the way he did even in 2020. So that's a change. Now, doesn't necessarily mean a lot, but I think it's notable that there's been some changes around the edges. Look, Rupert Murdoch said in his deposition with Dominion, he said he thinks people that believe the big lie are, quote, crazy. So he seems to know the truth. But that truth doesn't always get broadcast, and thus we still have this MAGA media that's a cult-like support for the former president, including Fox.
But let's stay on the truth. Tucker Carlson also, in that discovery in the Dominion voting systems case, said he couldn't stand Donald Trump, that he hated Donald Trump, and yet Donald Trump, like a moth to a flame, goes to Tucker Carlson to be able to do this pre-recorded days before the Wednesday debate interview.
Yes, because, again, I think Trump needs to figure out some way to get somewhere if he's not able to get the kind of airtime he had before. And he's aligning himself with these figures who are out there on the fringes of the internet now, Tucker Carlson being the best example, trying to create new platforms, mostly not succeeding, but trying very hard to do so. I think Tucker on X, it's a short-term play for him. He's going to try to launch some big new media venture, according to my sources, but he's not nearly as big as he was 6 months ago. His rhetoric, not nearly as loud and impactful as it was 6 months ago. That's a real change in the media landscape, where someone who was very fringe but was able to speak to millions is now back on the fringes.
So I got less than a minute. You know, there's always this healthy debate on social media with guests. About how the media should be dealing with somebody like Donald Trump.
Right.
Do we give him too much oxygen, almost like you give oxygen to a conflagration and it gets out of control? By addressing it, do we curb that coverage? I always want to ask people this because I honestly want to know.
I think we're at the point where it should be a lot less about Trump and a lot more about Trumpism. We can't ignore Trumpism, but let's talk about his own grievances and more talk about why those grievances appeal to a part of the population. And let's have some honest talk about how big is that base actually? How many Republicans might be persuadable, might be willing to take a bet on somebody else, on a younger candidate, a newer candidate? So less Trump, but I think that we have to reckon every day, as you do, as this network does, as all the networks do, with Trumpism, because that is still very much in our politics every day.
There's a small part of my brain, Brian Stelter,
Am I crazy?
stuck with the, no, but I'm stuck in the Donald Trump in his pajamas doing anything. Brian Stelter, thank you. As I said, new book coming out in November. Check that out. He also has a book out already, which is called Hoax.
Thanks.
And I want to thank all of you for joining me this morning for 2 hours of the Katie Phang Show. I'll be back next Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. Remember, you can keep up with us by following @Katie Phang Show on Instagram, TikTok, and X, formerly known as Twitter.